Well, Roger, Janelle, Franco-Gawa Plaza, believe it or not, is actually pretty quiet right now. We had seen some online digital flyers saying there was going to be an event here at 4 p.m. celebrating that verdict. But as you can see, there's no crowds, no speakers. I do want to show you, we do see these two individuals here holding those signs. They're about to speak to our colleague from our sister station, Telemundo. And one of those signs reads, "Guilty, guilty, guilty, victory for the movement. A badge is not a license to kill." Now, earlier today, I did speak to Oakland Mayor Lili Schaaf. She says she felt a wave of relief when she heard the verdict in the Derek Chauvin trial. Schaaf says now is the time for a thoughtful conversation on police accountability. Earlier today, we followed along Oakland Police Chief LaRon Armstrong, who stopped by a number of businesses along Broadway that were targeted by vandals last Friday night following a demonstration for Dante Wright and Adam Toledo, the two recent victims of police shootings. Armstrong reassured people who work downtown that officers are keeping a close eye on any potential gatherings today and through the week, and he promised that police will do everything that they can to protect their property. Armstrong said, as a black man and a black police chief, the George Floyd trial showed it's time to tackle on a new era of police reform.
We need to talk about police reform. And I'm a police chief that is willing to have that conversation about how we as law enforcement can police our communities in a way that's fair and equitable for all people, no matter what you look like, and to be accountable when we make mistakes.
This is the verdict that many of us wanted, but the work is not over. The work is just beginning.
We got to come outside, we got to show solidarity, and we got to stand together, white people, black people, all people.
And that is an artist from Oakland that you just heard from. And downtown Oakland, we saw these two artists continuing to paint vibrant murals and beautifying rows and rows of boarded up windows. The artist told us right now Oakland needs positive vibes, and they're urging people to respect small businesses if and when groups do in fact gather tonight or through the week. But back out here live, you can see these two individuals carrying signs. They're being interviewed right now. And again, I spoke to the man right here, and he said he thanked Minneapolis for what happened today. And he says right now this is a new movement, a new era when it comes to police accountability. That's the latest here in Oakland. I'm Melissa Colorado, NBC Bay Area News.
Okay, thanks, Melissa. We heard from Mayor Lili Schaaf. We're also getting reaction from Governor Newsom. Soon after the verdict, he tweeted this statement: George Floyd would still be alive if he looked like me. That must change. No conviction can repair the harm done to the Floyd family, but today's verdict provides accountability. Now we must continue our work to root out the racial injustice that haunts our society.
It is hard to summarize how people feel about today's verdict. It's deeply personal and emotional, but there is cautious optimism that change could be coming. Cephas Johnson, whose nephew, Oscar Grant, was shot in the back by a BART police officer in 2009, told us that today's hearing, after hearing the verdict, it stirred up memories and emotions. That BART police officer who killed Grant at the Fruitvale station was convicted of manslaughter, not murder, and served 11 months in prison.
It definitely did, because that same knee that was on George Floyd's neck was the same knee that was on Oscar's neck. And George Floyd cried out he couldn't breathe, same way Oscar cried out he couldn't breathe.
Oakland police reform activist Cap Brooks telling us that while this offers a measure of justice to the family of George Floyd, this verdict today, the real question is what happens next and whether this triggers real reform for police agencies across the nation.
Sobering responses from San Francisco leaders tonight as well. Let's go to NBC Bay Area's Lili Tan. She spoke with leaders former and current. She's live at City Hall. Lili.
Yeah, Janelle, while we were waiting for the verdict, police were setting up extra barricades. They were walking around San Francisco City Hall. And just a few minutes ago, I just want to show you these two police vans showed up here, and several officers got out and started walking around City Hall as well. And, you know, but since those three guilty verdicts came down, it's been very, very quiet here. That's definitely not what was expected as businesses were boarding up their windows yesterday. We talked to former Mayor Willie Brown, who said his first reaction to the verdict was relief, and that putting up all of this plywood was not justified. Have a listen.
This is just one incident in America from the perspective of a black person. We now know that it may be possible when we have been victimized, as we often are. But we also know it may not be as instructional as it needs to be.
Now, Mayor London Breed also released a statement which reads in part, what this verdict does reflect is that the tide is turning in this country, although still too slowly, toward accountability and justice. Now, San Francisco police are still prepared for potential demonstrations with extra officers on duty, but say they're still committed to protecting free speech. The SFPOA also just released a statement saying in part that the 3 police unions are committed to enacting reforms that will keep all Americans safe. We're also hearing that there's a rally planned in just a few minutes at 24th and Mission. We're live in San Francisco. Lili Tan, NBC Bay Area News.
Okay, thank you, Lili. Well, the jury found Derek Chauvin guilty on all 3 charges. And here's a little more detail on what each of those charges mean. For second-degree murder, prosecutors had to show that Chauvin killed Floyd while committing a felony, in this case, assault. Prosecutors didn't have to prove Chauvin intended to kill Floyd, only that he intended to apply unlawful force that caused bodily harm. The second-degree murder charge carries a maximum sentence of 40 years. The third-degree murder charge is for death caused through action that was eminently dangerous and carried out with a reckless disregard for the loss of life. The maximum sentence for third-degree murder is 25 years. And second-degree manslaughter is death through culpable negligence that Chauvin knew what he was doing could result in severe injury or death. That's punishable by up to 10 years in prison. It's likely the sentences will be served concurrently and not back to back since they came from the same crime. Sentencing is expected in about 8 weeks from now. That means Derek Chauvin could get a maximum sentence of 40 years in prison. And again, you can find that explainer on our website, NBCBayArea.com.